Hey, I'm Joe Thigpen, Discipleship Pastor of City Church. One of the things many of us feel today is the pressure and stress of living in a secular age. And really what that means is just living in an age where there's many different explanations and reasons that people give for the meaning of life, the meaning of all things, and who God is, what He's done. And we see this in sometimes the friends that we have, those who are our neighbors, and really just a plethora of resources and answers that are given to the questions of meaning of life online. So maybe you have a Muslim friend or a Hindi neighbor, or somebody who is kind of a new age spiritualist, that all give different accounts for the meaning of life and why we're here. And maybe as a Christian, you've thought about, well, how do I know that Christianity is the one true option, the one true religion of all religions in the world? Maybe it's not something you've thought about in conversation with that Muslim friend or that Hindi neighbor. Well, as we look at what the Bible has to say and what resources we have as Christians to think about this, it's really quite simple, and it strikes at really the core of our faith. And that's really, how can we know that Christianity is the one true religion out of all the other options that may flood our minds or imagination? And that's, again, two answers. One, that Jesus is alive. And second, that Jesus is building His church. So first, Jesus is alive. That, other than just a statement of belief and a statement of our faith that's central, that's really a statement of history. It's a historical fact that Jesus is alive. It's something that we can investigate. And we see from many different historical resources that a man named Jesus lived in ancient Near Eastern Palestine, and certainly the Gospels give record to this, and his life was exemplary and many people followed him. Well, it's also a matter of historical record that Jesus, this carpenter from Nazareth, died. That he died a criminal's death on a Roman cross. And then something happened. Something happened after Jesus' death. It certainly is what the Apostle Paul, one of the earliest Christians, said is the core of the Christian faith, and that is Jesus rose from the dead. That He rose again to life. And although there are secular historians or pagan historians during the time, meaning of other religions, that maybe it would have disputed the facts of Christianity, the historical record is accurate and decisive that something happened. Something happened with Jesus after His death that changed things. And what we as Christians say is it changed history. That Jesus' resurrection is a fact of history. Which leads to the second point, that Jesus is building His church. One of the other things that historical records have a hard time explaining, again, those that deny that Jesus did in fact rise from the dead, is, well, how did the church get started? How did this kind of cobbled together band of carpenters, fishermen, maybe a tax collector, who really were abandoning Jesus at His crucifixion when He experienced this brutal death, how did those that abandoned this man actually start a worldwide movement? And again, I think if we're being honest, looking at history and being honest about what happened, it's that Jesus did in fact rise from the dead, and that Jesus, through His Spirit, built His church. Built His church into people from many nations, many tongues, that would one day cover the entire earth, that wouldn't be beholden to one empire or another, be married with one form of government or one class of people, but would in fact revolutionize and change the world. That this good news of Jesus, that the good news of our first point, that Jesus is alive, would change people and start churches throughout the world. And that this continues till today, for centuries, for nearly 2,000 years, Jesus has been building His church. Again, not beholden to any one form of culture or any one group of people, but united around a simple confession, a historic confession, that Jesus is alive and that Jesus continues to work through His people, building His church, and He'll one day complete that task. So how do we know that Christianity is the one true religion amongst all others? It's because it makes historic claims, things that we can investigate, events that we can look to. Paul says that Jesus appeared to over 500 witnesses in addition to the disciples. These are things to investigate. And I think as we look at these things in the historical record and taking Jesus at his word, we see that he is in fact alive and he continues to work. So that's why we can believe that Christianity is the one true religion out of all the others.